Okay, let's move on to the next video update of the manual. In this video we will see the different working modes of the addon, how to move between them and what to use each one for in each moment. So, to move between the different working modes we have a pie menu that can be accessed with the Ctrl plus Alt plus Shift plus Q keyboard shortcut. Here we see the different modes we can move through in block surfaces. Here you see the blocking mode, and this is the mode we will spend most of our time in since it is the main working mode. This is the mode where we can work with branches for most of the operations that are performed with them. Here we can modify them as we want, extruding, scaling, sculpting the objects of the branches. Duplicate them, separate them into parts, create them with hierarchy in the same branches or some with others, and when joining them form the articulated character. So you can do almost everything here. We will see in what cases to move to the other modes to see what they are more useful for and how to take advantage of them for more comfortably and more organized job. Let's continue with the rest of the modes to explain the differences and what each one is designed for. Okay, so another working mode is the muscle flat mode, which we enter to modify this type of muscle flat or membrane branches. As we see here, we have access to the muscle flat objects, which allows us to change their scales, for example. Let's exit and re-enter so you can see that when we enter muscle flat mode, by default it selects all the muscle flat objects, so we can easily modify them. As you can see, in this mode you can only select this type of objects. The muscle flat objects are made children of the objects that created them. So in blocking mode the muscle flats are not selected because these will be moved by the branch objects. Let's see the objects here. I'm selecting only the branch object. Look how the objects that form the muscle flat are not selected in blocking mode. How the muscle flats follow the objects that created them. This makes it easier not to worry about whether we select the muscle flats or not, and the branches take care of moving them, working in a cleaner and easier way by having the handling of this type of object separate. For this, when we create a muscle flat, we have to select these objects from these branches in blocking mode. Ctrl plus F to create the muscle flat. Here we have the new muscle flat that follows the objects that created it, which are the ones that can be selected in blocking mode. If we wanted to adjust something from this new muscle flat, we change to muscle flat mode. To change its scale like this. Or change its color, so we are changing the color of the material of the active object. All those that have the same material change. I can copy the material from the active one for all selected from here. Now the color of the new muscle flat changes with all the others. So we keep them separate, and returning to blocking mode I select the branches again without the muscle flat, so there is no problem if an object is selected or not that is in the same place as the main branch object. In muscle flat mode we can also change here the scale with which new muscle flat branches will be created, indicating here its size. Normally a recommended flow is when creating the first muscle flat, to capture the scale of the active object here and adjust the scale value, and the following ones will be created with that value. Let's create a new muscle flat to see that it will be created with that new scale value. So what we saw in blocking mode is that we only select normal branches and these will drag the muscle flats. And look how we cannot select the muscle flats. To edit the muscle flats we enter muscle flat mode, and this way we can access them, edit them as we want, position, scale, etc. Let's delete these example muscle flats. We have another mode that is very related to this one. In this new muscle flat plus blocking mode, in this case just like in the previous one it selects the muscle flat objects by default. But in this one it also allows us to simultaneously select objects from the branches. This one we can use to copy some properties from the standard branches, like color, or use the scale of some object as a reference for the size of the muscle flats. So this mode simply provides the ability to work with both types of branches for certain operations. The next working mode is this rest zone. Here we can send objects, branches so they don't bother us when we work on other parts of the model. It's like a temporary storage where to send parts that we don't need for a time. Selecting some object from the branches that we want to send to the rest zone. We will use the Alt+Q keyboard shortcut, and in the Pie menu you can find the option here, Send Objects to Rest. Let's select the branches we want to work more comfortably with each part when interested. If we activate the Working Modes Pie menu, we can go to the rest zone and see which objects we have there. For the muscle flats that we cannot select in blocking mode, we would have to change to muscle flat plus blocking to be able to select everything and send it to the rest zone. The rest zone is just a storage area, it's not meant to perform operations with the branches. So there will be operations that will tell us we cannot perform them in the rest zone. We must bring the branches back to blocking mode to continue working on them. For this, in the rest zone, by activating the Pie menu with Alt+Q, we remove the objects from the rest zone so that they return to the blocking zone. Now in blocking mode we have the branches again and we could operate on them normally. The next mode we are going to see is the Simulate Rig mode. In blocking mode we work with all these objects to achieve the character's shape by building the branches. Taking advantage of the hierarchy characteristic in the branches and how easy it is to join some with others to articulate the character, we can pose it like this in blocking mode. Above I leave a link to the video about the new auto hierarchy function where it explains a little bit how easy it is to make the character articulable without the need for a rig. But this is somewhat uncomfortable to reach the objects we want to select to articulate. There are hidden objects that are difficult to access even though we have shortcuts to move through the branches. So to make it easier we now have the option, the Simulate Rig mode. In Simulate Rig mode we will only have access to the objects that we have pre-configured. In this way we can easily select them without worrying about touching other objects that make up the character's shape but are not important for posing. For example, for this leg we have added the knee object, the ankle object to the Simulate Rig, so we only select the ones we are interested in for the pose. To determine which objects are the ones we want to be part of the Simulate Rig function, from blocking mode with the same Pie menu to send objects to the rest area, we also have the option to add objects to the rig. For example, an object like this at the end of the leg, which would be inconvenient and slow to reach if it were hidden. If we assign it to the rig, we will then have much easier and faster access to it. In the end, all these objects will be stored for each time we enter Simulate Rig mode. They will be available. We can also remove objects from the rig with the same Pie menu, with the Remove Objects from Rig option. Also, when we are in rig mode, we can view or hide the mark of the rig objects, even though they are still available, to pose more comfortably without visual annoyances. When we make the poses, we can save them from Simulate Rig mode, keeping in mind that the animation keys will be created for the selected objects. We can also create the animation keys, save the poses in blocking mode. The Simulate Rig mode simply makes it more comfortable to pose more complex characters. For the simulate rig function we can use any object, even an object that does not belong to a branch can be used with the characters hierarchy and added to have it available in simulate rig mode. Again, the pie menu that serves us to add objects to the simulate rig function gives us the option to remove an object from the rig. So in summary, simulate rig is a function that will allow us to work more comfortably to pose complex characters. One last simulate rig option that we have here in the panel menu. On the one hand, we have the option to empty the rig object list if at some point we add an object to the rig that we later delete and the list may have objects that are not useful, we can reset it and recreate it. And finally, we have this mirror objects rig option, which is not yet in version 1.0.241, and will be added very soon. This will allow us to select the objects from one side only and quickly add the mirror objects to the rig. The following mode is the Block Surfaces mode. This is where the final meshes generated after applying remeshing to the different branches will be. As you already know, we can generate as many final meshes as we want with different poses, different definitions according to how we subdivide the objects that make up the branches or different voxel value for remeshing. Each time a new final mesh is generated, a collection called surfaces is created. Let's generate another one to see this process. We return to blocking mode to see the possible uses of having different generated models. We will now only generate this bone, select it, it has a mirror mesh here. We indicate that we only want to prepare the selected branches. As always, we follow the process you already know, generate. We adjust the voxel size. Depending on the resolution of the interior objects, we will see their shapes more or less defined. We will join this into a single object. We adjust the voxel value again for remeshing. And we apply it. Then you can see here that the surface collection has been generated with the new generated objects, in this case, only the bone. We can generate another final mesh now of the club. We select it and repeat the process. You already know it's better to deactivate automatic smoothing and subdivide interior objects if you want smoother shapes. And again, generate. Adjust the remeshing value. And apply. And we now have a new collection called BkSurfaces. If we go to Block Surfaces mode, we will see all the collections that have been generated. For managing these collections with the final meshes, we have this custom zone option here in the right panel. Here we can select the objects of one of the collections by marking and clicking on Select Custom Zone. In this box we will see the custom zone we are working with, which will be the active one and through which we can access its objects via the Mode Pie menu. If we selected another one, we could see it from here. Or again by accessing the last active custom zone through the Pie menu. So if I'm in Block Surfaces mode, it shows us all the generated meshes. To move objects to the different collections, we select the object, mark the collection we want to move it to and click on Create/Move to Custom Zone. The active custom zone will be the one that appears in the text box above this option. Now we already have the new bone in the Pose 1 collection, let's see Pose 2 and then Pose 1 to check it. If we only visualize pose 1, we will see it better. We return to Blocksurfaces mode to visualize all the meshes generated independently of the collection they are in. And now we are going to move the club to pose 2. Or we can create a new one instead of moving, which will be pose 3. There it is, only that object is in the new custom pose 3. Now if we select pose 2 so that it is the one we are going to move to. If we select by custom zone, we will see that it now belongs to pose 2. So this is how we can move or create between the collections with final meshes and organize everything in the way that is most convenient for us. For example, a new one for the hair. We return to see all the generated meshes. The last active custom zone, the hair, now appears in the pie menu. So here you have these options to work with the generated final meshes. A final option we have here is to use the collections where the final meshes are, having them available in blocking mode. Let's see here with the remeshed club if we had sculpted all the detail. To use this object or objects could be those we want to have in the collection that we will name as club. If we select the Edit in Blocking option, this new collection we create, its objects will be available in blocking mode. As you can see, it is renamed with the _call suffix. When we return to blocking mode, we have that object available to work with in blocking mode, being able to parent it, use it in simulation rig mode, we could generate the final mesh including that new object, etc. If we go back to blocking mode, this collection remains a generated mesh, so it will also appear with the rest of the collections that contain the generated meshes. Let's do it with another collection. We configure pose 1 to also have it available in blocking mode. There is pose 2 available in blocking mode. Or if we want to avoid it being in blocking mode again, we move the objects to a new collection by deactivating Edit in Blocking. Now it will once again only be available in Blocksurfaces mode. If you like the channel, the addon, and you want to support the project, give us a like and subscribe. See you soon.